welcome everyone into Palmetto Mornings on this Tuesday edition. It's 7:09 in the morning. We're looking at 26 degrees. I'm Lucas McFadden.
And I'm Ashley Lang.
And of course, you're listening to us on the radio, both AM and FM dials. You're listening to us on the app and WRHI.com.
And you can watch us on CN2 or on any of the major social media platforms.
His name is Joshua Bovill. He's from right here in Rock Hill. He works at one of our Rock Hill elementary schools, Old Point Elementary School. But today he's here because he has written a book. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Teaching and Reaching Black Boys. And this is part of a bigger launch that's happening here in our community, and Josh is going to tell us all about it. And good morning to you, Joshua. You like Joshua though, right?
It doesn't matter. Either way is cool with me. If I hear Joshua, I think about when I got in trouble as a kid and my mother said Joshua.
Okay, so we'll do Josh.
We'll do Josh. Now, your son's name is Joshua, and he says, right, I want to be called Joshua.
Yeah, he'll correct me on it.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so, Josh, walk us through the ultimate guide to teaching and reaching Black boys. And if you're watching us, you're seeing a cover of what the book looks like right here. But walk us through the thought process behind this.
Sure. So I tell the story. I actually called Miss Roberts. I want to tell the story of a lady named Lisa Roberts, who I worked with her when I was in York School District 1. And and she retired a few years ago, but if you ever work with her, she's one of the greatest teachers you'll ever interact with. And I just want to give her flowers while I'm here and say that. But we had a conversation. I asked her if I could share this story. And she asked me one day when maybe my first or second year, she said, Coach Bovill, you do such a great job of like reaching and teaching, Black boys. Can you help me? I have a student I'm struggling with. Can you help me? I don't think I have the experiences or the tools or the skills to do it. Excuse me. And when she said that, in that moment, being a young educator, I was excited to help her. And, I always took that on. I was oftentimes, one of the few, if only, African-American males in the classrooms in the school I work at. And when she shared that experience with me, as I progressed through my educational career, I started reflecting on the educators that I had in the past. And I think about my 7th grade teacher, Miss Sherry Tommy, who was a white woman. And I've had a lot of different teachers, but there was not a teacher that reached me more than Sherry Tommy. I highlight that to say anybody can teach any kid. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter your background. Every kid just wants to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be valued. And so as I was thinking about that, I wanted to say, how could I, being a writer, I love writing, how could I take these experiences and create a book centered around teaching and reaching African-American boys? Because it's not a Rock Hill issue. It's not a South Carolina issue. It is a nationwide emergency for the underperformance of our boys. And it's not because they're not intelligent. It's not because they're not smart. It's just we need to do more. And this book is kind of the springboard for that.
Well, we are here for all of this. I mean, this is such a message that I hope with this book gets in the hands of everyone across the country, because I think you raise a good point. No matter what you look like, where you come from, everyone is coachable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and instill in them the values, and they'll be successful.
For sure.
So when people get their hands on this book, Teaching and Reaching Black Boys, what will they learn from this? What do you hope they'll learn from this?
So it's funny because what I thought when I was writing the book, what I thought was going to be the largest takeaway wasn't what a lot of the readers, because I've put it in the hands of teachers and I put it in the hands of administrators, and I wanted the people who are going to read this book, because it's targeted towards teachers and principals and anybody who works with students, doesn't matter their background, but especially African-American boys. And I put it in their hands, and the overwhelming response has been the REACH framework, which talks about how do you reach the African-American boy? You have to be real. You have to be empathetic. You have to be affirming to them, right? You have to be caring, and then you have to take a holistic approach, not just looking at how they're performing on this test. You have to look at their holistic environment and reach them comprehensively. And so that has been the thing that has stood out with most teachers. But I think the other takeaway is how the book doesn't read as a traditional educational book. It reads like a story. And it follows the story of a kid named Jared King, who's a star football player And he has teachers who push him to see himself outside of just being an athlete. Because if I'm just being honest, I thought, as a lot of African American boys, we often think that our only way to success is through entertainment or sports or things like that. So this book would challenge that. And Dr. Collinsville, who's a white teacher in the book, she forces Jared to see himself outside of just an athlete. And I don't want to give too much away because it has a few cliffhangers on each chapter, but that's the overwhelming thing, is being comprehensive in how we reach those boys, but then also affirming who they are outside of what they can do with their bodies, more so what they can do with their minds.
Well, and a big piece of this is, and you just brought up this word, is empathy, and to be empathetic. And it's part of the empathy project. But I think that word sometimes gets lost, not only on our younger children, but just our generation and our communities as wholes. So what would you say to educators about being empathetic and really what that means and how they can apply that to their everyday job?
I love that question, and the best way I can put it is this: I want to give flowers to my principal, Bianca Shivers White at Old Point Elementary School. When you think about the word empathy, she's the epitome of that. Here's what I mean: there are oftentimes everybody's gone in the building, and she might see, let's say, a spill in the cafeteria. She's the principal of that school. She knows that her custodians do a lot. She'll go grab a mop, she'll go grab a bucket, and she'll mop the floor. There's times where she's at that school and she's doing everything to put herself in the shoes of her students, put herself in the shoes of her teachers, put herself in the shoes of her parents. That's empathy. It's just trying to put yourself in that other person's shoes and see what their life is like, and then figure out how you can walk with them and help them, not do it for them, but walk with them. So when I think of empathy, I think about reaching and teaching Black boys. It's just see life from their perspective. Don't judge it, just see it from their perspective, and then try to walk with them. And it's powerful when you do.
That's good.
I mean, again, it's common sense, but somehow we've complicated the whole discussion. And you know what you do, frankly? You address the elephant in the room and you make an awkward conversation hopefully less awkward.
Yeah.
Because we are individuals in this room that when there's an awkward situation, we'll go ahead and address it. Because if you don't address it, it becomes more awkward. But so this, you just say, this might be a little awkward for you. And if it is, here's a book that will hopefully give you the tools so you don't have to be as awkward moving forward, which I think is great. Joshua, you must have had someone pour into you. I know you've mentioned your coworkers and your principals now, but who poured into you when you were your son's age? Because someone definitely poured into you. What was your upbringing like to get you to where you're at today?
So I grew up on the south side of Greenwood, South Carolina, and I had a mom and a father who battled drug addiction. My mom is recovered from crack after 17-year drug addiction, so kudos to that. And my grandmother was a staple in my life. I had a lot of uncles and big brothers. My older brother David poured into me. When I think about educationally, my principal, Mr. McClinton, who was my third grade principal, who saw me for who I was and not just this kid from the hood that had drug addicted parents, if I'm just being honest. And then as I got older, when I was trying to figure out my life, when I knew football was, I was 5'6" and ran a 5'8" 40, a 4'8" 40. I knew I wasn't going to the NFL. And I had Mr. Robinson, who was my guidance counselor, and he put me into his office. And he said, "Have you ever thought about being a teacher?" And I was like, no, never. And he said, "Well, there's this program called Call Me Mister." And so he told me about it, and he wrote my scholarship, my recommendation letter, and I got into that, and that changed everything. And then And then as I got into education, I've had a lot of mentors. Mr. Abraham, Michael Abraham, he wrote the foreword. I think about Mr. Ball, who was my principal in York. He gave me an opportunity to get an education when I was applying all over the state. This is before the massive teacher shortage. And nobody gave me an opportunity, but he said, "Do you love kids?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I can teach you how to teach, but I can't teach you how to love kids." So, and that got my foot in the door. And so those pivotal moments, I think, led up to where am today.
So it's called Teaching and Reaching Black Boys. That's the name of the book. This is going to be part of a launch event that includes a book and a documentary and some other activities. So walk us through what the day is on that, what that looks like.
Yeah, so Saturday, January 25th at the Center for the Arts here in Rock Hill, downtown Rock Hill, we will have the launching of what we call the Empathy Project. I partnered up with Tadian Page, who owns Ascend Solutions. Shout out to him. He's amazing. If you don't work with anybody else, work with Tadian.
We know him very well.
Yes, we
agree.
I told him about this idea, and I said, I need to figure out a way I want to get this into every teacher's hands in the nation. And so the Empathy Project is the launch of all 3 projects, which the book is actually accompanied with a documentary called Father Figure, which is a call to action for mentorship for African-American boys. And then it's also released with a hip-hop album. So the Empathy Project, the book, and the documentary collectively make up the Empathy Project. And that's what we'll launch. It's a reimagining of professional development in schools where teachers can go through, because what I've found and what I've learned is we have the tools and we have the information, oftentimes just reminding about that empathy piece. So it's an immersive experience through the lens of what it's like to be a Black boy growing up in America, growing up in whatever community you live in order for you to just reignite that empathy and say, wow, I can teach this kid, I can reach this kid. And so that's what the launch is.
Can folks go ahead and get their hands on the book now? And if so, where do they get this?
Yep. So they can go to my website, joshbovill.com. That's JOSHBOV as in Victor, like my mom used to say, ILL.
My mom says the same thing. I was V growing up.
Oh, my gosh.
Bovill.com. And then you can get tickets to the Empathy Project. There are only 18 tickets left, which is happy to say that. And then the book also can be pre-ordered there. All of it will release on January 25th. The documentary, the album, and the book will officially be released at the launch of the Empathy Project.
And what time does that start?
It starts at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Well, his name is Joshua Bovill. Again, he's the writer or the author of this book, Teaching and Reaching Black Boys. And as he mentioned, it comes with a documentary and a hip-hop album. And this is a guide for really anyone in the country, but specifically those that work with kids. So keep that in mind if this is something that is on your plate and you've got questions and you don't know where to go. This is certainly, it seems like a step in the right direction. And Joshua is a very smart guy, because the first sentence in the book says, "To my beautiful wife, Charlie." You acknowledge it right off the bat.
Yeah, and I will get in a lot of trouble if I don't correct you and say Charlay.
Oh, Charlie.
Yeah, she would get me.
Charlay. We got it.
Yeah, it's just spelled weird.
No. Leave it to the idiot on the radio to get her name wrong. But thank you so much.
No, thank you
for correcting us.
You.
And congratulations on all your success.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Congratulations.
It is 7:22.